Hi, this is Marty Murphy and welcome. What do you do when you find that you have a belief that's not serving you and your mind chatter is just so persistent? And whether you're new to tapping or have been tapping for a long time, and I know I experienced this where I'm like, wow, I've tapped on this particular issue before, and it feels like, am I going back to that? Like it's not budging much. It's those pesky little limiting beliefs that just seem to persist and persist and persist. And really, the truth about those is it's just a belief that's been with us that much longer or that much more persistently. It's a thought that we have been thinking over and over and over and over again without much, if any, interruption to it. So if you find that you have, like, I've tapped on this and it's showing up again and like this tapping's not working, it's not that. It's just that this particular belief of yours is just going to require more interruption. And it doesn't mean that you have to sit down and tap through that for 20 minutes or even an hour. What I have found for these particular beliefs with myself is the more consistently you just keep interrupting the pattern, keep interrupting the pattern, keep interrupting the pattern, the more it starts to diminish. And it doesn't mean you have to do this long tapping sequence, but little techniques for if you notice, say, oh my gosh, here I come, this doubt's coming up again. Just do a quick tapping round and tell the story about it. Oh, here I am, and I'm frustrated again that I feel like I'm dealing with this doubt that's coming up again. I get angry at myself, and I feel frustrated about it. That simple interrupts the pattern. If you get on the computer and pop in like a 2-minute, 3-minute, 1-minute funny video or some video that distracts you from that thought, that's a pattern interrupt. If you do those right here, right now questions, in the moment questions that I talked about on one of my videos, is right here, right now, despite this belief that is going on for me, am I okay? Am I safe? Are my circumstances dire? Any one of those questions interrupts the pattern. If you get up and take a drink of water, if you get up and stretch, if you stand up and touch your toes, if you just do something to interrupt the pattern and do that consistently, and you can do that throughout the day, even if you're surrounded by other people, you can internally just ask yourself, right here, right now, am I okay? When you get present with yourself and get present with that and you interrupt it, it's huge. And just to do it consistently. And keep this sort of note to self. It doesn't mean that you're going to remember to do that all the time. Sometimes you'll be like, oh God, I forgot to interrupt the pattern. That's fine. Let it go. It's just when you do remember and you do it, celebrate that. It's totally a win. And the more you do that, if you have to set a reminder in your phone just to remind you, okay, I want to interrupt this, even if it's not coming up at that moment, it could put you back in that place and help to interrupt that pattern. So this is for those patterns of behavior that you find like, I've tapped on this, I've worked through this, I've done so much stuff around this, and it still seems to persist. Literally, it just means that particular neural pathway is just more deeply grooved in your brain, and it's just going to require more persistent interruption of it. And I talked on one of the videos about I was noticing this doubt coming up for me. And my maiden name is Wortman, Wortman. And when I was growing up, I got a nickname from certain people. I was called Worry Wortman. You think that's not an entrenched belief? So it makes sense that I would go to doubt, go to worry, go to fear about it. I'd been doing that, like, I think I was probably 5 the first time somebody said, oh, Worry Wortman. And obviously that patterning got in place in me long before I was 5 years old. So it just kept going into this place. So it makes sense that this particular place for me, when doubt shows up, it's just a more persistently thought limiting belief. And the more that I can keep interrupting it, the better. If you can go get physical, if you can get up and take a walk around the block, if you can walk down and get your mail, whatever it is, flip through the mail, open a book and read something out of it, read an uplifting quote, anything like that that will help to interrupt that pattern. And the more you do it, the more you're going to find over time that, wow, that's lightening up for me. I'm noticing I don't feel it that consistently. I know that's been true for me. And here's a great example. Say you've money issues, which I think is pretty common with a lot of people. If you have online banking or you have a checkbook, anything like that, and every time you open it and look at it, you get this sense of, most of us have a number that's sort of the safety number for us. So you see that amount in your checkbook, in your bank account, and you're like, okay, I'm okay. And then when it starts to dip below that number, you can start to notice the fear and all that's elevating. That is a great indicator to interrupt the pattern. So what's really good here is every time you look at your checkbook, every time you look at your online banking, just make sure that you're tapping. Tapping's awesome to do, particularly with you're looking at something physically on the computer or you're looking at your checkbook if you still have one of those, and do that way. Every time you look at it, you can look at it 100 times a day. Just make sure that you tap. If you're stuck in a job, a career, something like that, where you're like, God, I just can never get ahead. I think I'm going to get traction, and I don't. Every time that thought comes up, it's the perfect time to interrupt it. If there's someone in your life, and I think this personally is one of the most challenging arenas when you're having an interaction with a human being. My thing is, I used to say like I'm a nuclear reactor. I am definitely a reactor. It's a habit of behavior that I have had ingrained in me for so long. Something happens, it's the knee-jerk reaction. I'm like off and running. I go into this reaction mode. Am I doing that less than I used to? Absolutely. But in the face of that, that is the best time to interrupt the pattern. Even something I've started doing on occasion is something comes up and I just go, oh well. That's a pattern interruption. Whatever you can do to interrupt any of those patterns, all the better. And just plan on doing it consistently. You will be amazed over time how you're like, it starts to feel lighter. That you can say, look at your bank account and you're like, wow, that's just a number. Or in the face of somebody, you're having an altercation with somebody, you're like, wow, isn't that interesting that they're really like going off there? Or noting your own internal, what's going on for you, your dialogue, like, oh, wow, that's interesting that I'm feeling this as you're sitting here saying this to me or yelling. You will get more and more to a place where you can consistently just go, okay, you can catch yourself even more. So for all those pesky little buggers, those persistent thoughts that really feel debilitating or like they're just a nuisance, it's like the background noise in your life. The more you become aware of it and the more you can interrupt that pattern with just a quick tapping, right here, right now, am I okay? Flip on a video, open a book, read something, just shift the energy, get yourself out of it. The more you are literally interrupting that pattern, and that Grand Canyon of a neural pathway is going to keep filling in and a new one will form. So no tapping on today's video. Just do whatever little techniques you can. So thanks so much for being here. And I'll see you on the next video. Take good care.